Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
Hey, I'm over here at Monzú restaurant, Italian restaurant at Jones, a little bit east, on Flamingo, a little bit east of Jones. With me is the chef and owner, Giovanni Mauro. And let me tell you, you are in for an education about Italian food and a big surprise during this interview. And look, you are as authentic as it comes. When I say authentic, I mean the restaurants. I mean, obviously you are as well, but you grew up in Sicily.
I did.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The story goes that I was born here in the United States. And when I was very young, the family decided to move back to Sicily and grew up there until I was 13.
And did you want to be a chef as a kid? I mean, how did that work?
No, but I always loved cooking. It was always part of my life. Very first memory I had was cooking with my relatives, my dad, my mom, and then all the aunts and uncles. I just always gravitated towards creating flavors in the kitchen. I always felt like that was when we expressed love the best, is over dinner and over food. I always found it so meaningful. I saw people that cooked in my culture that the more they cherished the relationship to the person, the more effort they put into making the food. It was a sign of respect. How much effort you put in and how good the food was is a sign of respect to the person that you were cooking for. And it just wonderful, warm memories. My first love was actually opera. That's where I went.
Yeah.
I was an aspiring opera singer. So to do that.
So you take singing lessons?
Yeah. I studied undergraduate at Cal State Long Beach, opera performance. Studied in Italy for many years with the famous tenor named Carlo Bergonzi, who was also one of Pavarotti's influences. Pavarotti, actually. I don't know if I ever told you this.
No.
He was the gentleman who put me in contact with Bergonzi to go study with him way back when. And they knew each other because they also studied from the same teacher.
All right.
And then Bergonzi was actually older than Pavarotti and had a lot of influence on his Verdian style. It was really wonderful, wonderful experience. However, while I was in Italy, I learned more about cooking than I did about singing. So that should have given me a clue that I should be in the kitchen.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I ended up, and I absolutely...
But now you can do both. You sing in the kitchen.
That's right.
Do a couple of bars for us?
Yeah.
Right now?
On the spot? No, not on the spot.
All right. The name Monzú.
This is a very historical name, and it's very old and archaic. And it's, I have to explain it to a lot of Sicilians. It's a Sicilian name, well, I should say Southern Italian name. Comes from the time when Southern Italy was unified as one. It was called the Kingdom of Two Sicily. It was very prevalent, doing very economically well during the French Revolution. And so when they got rid of the nobility, all these chefs didn't have employment. So they all immigrated down to southern Italy. And they all were referred as Monsieur. But Monsieur, for the Italians, very hard to pronounce, it became Monzú. And then Monzú became synonymous for master chef.
Wow.
And they've kind of kept that tradition for a few hundred years.
Lovely, lovely story.
Thank you.
It's, and your wife also sings.
My wife,
Quite well.
we met through the music during my Nora's days when I was with my parents managing. I put music on Fridays and Saturdays,
right.
And she was singing on the strip, and she came over. Her first love is jazz, and she came over and sat in and sang jazz, and I fell in love with her immediately, and that's without exaggeration.
And you keep this tradition here. Yeah, I see there's a stage back here. On the weekends, you have live entertainment.
Fridays and Saturday nights, 8:30 till we can't stand it.
Now, when somebody asks you to describe your restaurant, how do you go about that?
So, genuine, traditional Italian. It's regional. Every dish I make is very specific to the region. So I wouldn't say that it's only Sicilian. For instance, I make a great bread gnocchi from Piacenza. It's called pizzarei and fazool. Pizzarei, or the bread gnocchi, fazool is for beans. It is only done in Piacenza. It's a gnocchi made from stale bread, from day-old bread. It is absolutely wonderful. And I went to great lengths to make sure I replicated this impeccably. So my passion as a Monzú is to make sure that I figure out where the dish comes from, understand it, absorb the area and the flavors, and then be able to replicate that for my guests.
When we think of Italian food, we think of bread, pasta, wine.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they're staples. There's no doubt about it. I mean, but that's not the only thing that happens. Obviously, we eat a lot of seafood and a lot of meat. And, of course, cured meats is a huge part of the culture, and cheese is a huge part of the culture. I mean, suffices to say that we just love food as a culture. I mean, we're eating lunch and we're talking about what we're going to do for dinner. I mean, it's unbelievable.
How important is bread in an Italian restaurant?
It's very important. Bread is, to me, the qualifier on how much people care about what they're doing. And I know that's a bold statement.
Right.
But, we refer to bread as pane. We refer to food in general as pane, living, making a living as a piece of bread, right? So bread is synonymous in Italian culture with life, so it's very, very relevant. I remember still very vividly, we never, ever threw out bread. No matter how stale, we always found use for it. And if, for God forbid, we had to throw out a piece of bread, the old ladies would always kiss it before they would throw it in the trash. Always, always. My grandmother did it. And you know what? I got to tell you the truth. I find myself doing it because I feel so bad for throwing away bread. If you think about the effort that goes behind growing the wheat, milling it properly, then making the dough, fermenting it. If you have my kind of passion for yeast cultures and the long fermentation process, it is just remarkable the effort it takes.
Well, and we're going to take a look at combining that science with the skill, with the experience, and watch how you create the bread for this restaurant, because it is amazing. I would encourage people to come to this restaurant.
I can't
just to eat the bread. I mean, everything else is delicious, but the bread is great. And what else are we going? We're going to make some.
We're going to make something called pizza fritta, and we're going to make a focaccia.
Okay.
So those three expressions of the same dough, and I think they're just phenomenal to showcase. And I like to tell you about my starter dough, if that's okay.
Okay, we have only a couple minutes, but let's do it.
Yeah. So starter dough, I use no commercial yeast.
Right.
I brought a piece of starter dough from the island of Ischia, 300 years old. I mixed it together with the mother culture that I created here in Vegas. We combined it, and this is our starter. It takes 5 days for us to ferment our bread. 0 commercial yeast. 0. We go into the health benefits of that, but it is absolutely dynamite.
I promise you, you taste this bread and you will consider it some of the finest bread you've ever had anywhere in your life. Let's go make some.
Excellent. Let's go.
So we're back in the prep kitchen.
We are.
Next to Giovanni's restaurant, Monzú.
This is a great place for me to do all my experimenting.
Yeah, and there's no interruptions, right? Exactly. You don't have the hustle and bustle of the restaurant. You're like a suite or two over here.
That's right.
That's right. So what do you have in store for us?
So we were talking about the bread and my passion for, of course, the natural yeast and all this, and I thought it'd be opportune for you to actually taste the bread. Right. You've had it before, but this we did a great job on today. So
before you even cut it, it couldn't look any more delicious than it is. I mean, this is exactly...
It's actually plastic. It's not real.
No, but let me ask something about bread, okay? Yeah. Because I like things that are well done on the outside, but soft and moist on the inside.
So one of the things we didn't talk about that is interesting is when you have natural fermentation, there's a greater release of natural sugars in the dough. So when you go to cook it, it actually gets a darker tone to it. So it has to be darker to be fully cooked. And a lot of people see this bread and they say, oh, no, it's burnt. It is absolutely not. It has to be this color, or else the internal temperature won't be correct. It won't be fully cooked.
Okay, hey, let's dig into
So
this.
can I?
Please,
Shall
yeah.
I cut into this?
Yes. And this is the same bread you serve in the restaurant.
I do. Yeah.
Yes. Boy.
So one,
Yeah.
not bad for cell structure, huh?
Look,
Let me-
the inside is soft and is...
So this is an olive oil from Sicily.
okay.
It's an extra virgin olive oil, of course. This is one of the most prized olive oil there are. So shall I put it close to you there? Does that work?
Okay.
So it's made in Castelvetrano, which is actually very close to where I grew up, where I came from, where I grew up in, which is in the southern coast of Sicily. They call it olio verde. I always like it with a little bit of pecorino, so I'm going to just do my thing that I do.
Okay, yeah.
And throw that in
Did you
there.
add salt or not?
And it doesn't need salt because the pecorino is pretty
Okay.
pungent, and I'm going to sneak behind you. And I also like to put just a dab of pepper.
Mm-hmm.
That's all yours.
Is it? Okay.
Of course, I got to taste my own product.
Heaven.
We good?
I can come to Monzú and just eat bread the whole time.
Excellent. Bread and wine. When it's cooked right, you
Oh, look
squeeze
at
it,
that, yeah.
and it just comes right back to place.
Now, if you're going to not eat this right away, let's say I want to save it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Put it in the refrigerator.
Thank you so much for this question.
Yeah.
This is one of my pet peeves.
Mm-hmm.
And I never get to speak about it, so here it goes. Bread stales the most between 32 and 41 degrees,
Oh, so don't put
which
it in
is refrigeration temperature.
yeah.
So never put your bread in the refrigerator. The place to put your bread is either out at room temperature or in the freezer.
Okay, and
In
do
the
you,
freezer, it preserves phenomenally.
right, but would you wrap it with plastic wrap
yeah.
or put it in a baggie?
What I
If
do
you put it in a
with this
baggie,
one-
it changes the consistency of the crust.
It does if it's on the counter, of course. I have perforated bags that I use so that it kind of helps keep the crustiness of it. If in the freezer, I'll slice it, put it in Ziploc bags, and then I'll grab a couple of, and put it in the toaster oven. It's just like I just baked it. It's absolutely straight out of the freezer.
I mean, who would
It's
think there's so much work and knowledge goes into just creating a slice of bread?
I know it's
know?
we take it for granted. We're a very blessed society. We take it for granted, but this is an art that took thousands of years to master.
Right.
You know, the Egyptians are the ones that started, that really discovered fermentation, and it just developed from there. So it is pretty remarkable. And I always think of, imagine what they must have thought to see this bread grow. They must have thought it was divine intervention.
miracle.
You
Yes,
know, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
They didn't understand the leavening, the yeast, and what it does. And so, yeah. So, shall we go to the next
Yeah,
dish?
let's go on.
All right. Excellent. In Italy, this kind of cooking, we refer to it sometimes as arte bianca, which means the white art, white being the flour. So it encompasses pasta, it encompasses bread, it encompasses pastry. It's all about the arte bianca. And I find it fascinating. And so you're going to give me a hand in this, right? You're going to try to...
Hey, look, look, I'm an expert at this.
Excellent.
I took a pasta making cooking class just this summer in Italy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do. You're going to mimic my motions with that one right there.
Okay.
Cool?
Okay.
So a little flour on it. I turned it upside down to get the backside going.
All right. Okay.
Turn it upside down and face you long ways. But let me finish for you. There we go. So this one, pizza fritta, we don't want the crown to be too elevated. So we're actually going to start pressing it on the outside first. And then we're going to keep on pressing it with our fingers. You can see that the dough is quite light. My dough is light, and it renders perfectly for this particular pizza. And just kind of, let me get a little more flour in there so you're not getting stuck. And just
I
dig
guess
your
I
fingers in
should have
there.
had a little white
Apron?
chef up.
Yeah,
now
I
I
could've-
only understand why you wear white.
That's right, especially for the arte bianca. That's it.
Yeah.
That's good. So now get it right in the middle part. Just Extend it. Nice. That's wonderful. Okay.
Okay, I did wash my hands before we started.
Excellent.
Okay.
This is just crushed tomatoes with a little salt and olive oil in it. How does that look so far?
Well,
So far,
tomato
so good?
sauce looks unbelievably delicious.
All right.
You know, my dough looks like not as nice as tomato sauce.
Let's get a little pecorino in there for flavor. So another thing that a lot of folks do that I'm really against is a lot of folks like to chop basil, and I believe that it lessens in flavor. The flavor that comes from a basil leaf is the oil.
Right.
And if you're chopping with a knife, I feel that all the oil stays on the cutting board. So I always tear my basil whenever I'm cooking.
Preserves the oil in the leaf.
Correct. And then the food gets the flavor. And you can smell that. It's a little. It's summer in Italy. All right. Now I understand you have a little experience with the next part.
Eating it?
No. Mozzarella.
Yes, I did make a little mozzarella.
That must have been fun. That was in Italy, right?
Yes, and everybody's making mozzarella in Italy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that still a thriving business?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And made from buffalo. Mm-hmm. Milk is phenomenal. And this is a great product that actually is made by two gentlemen, Angelo and Franco. That's their brand name. They're in Southern California. And they had this idea. Their family has been cheesemakers for a long time in Italy. Mm-hmm. They had this idea of, listen, instead of importing the cheese, which is it gets spoiled very quickly, why don't we freeze and import the milk? So they freeze the milk in Italy, they import the milk, and then they make the cheese here in Irvine, California.
Wow.
And I think it's just a wonderful product. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this, okay? And so people say, oh, Giovanni, that's a calzone. Well,
right. Technically, it's not right.
They call it pizza fritta in Italy. I don't know why they call it that. That's what they call it. This part is not going to be healthy because we're putting it in the deep fryer.
Oh, okay.
All right, these are turning out to be lovely. I just want to keep on cooking here for a while. So, focaccia in Genova, big thing. Olive oil is a must. I'm using, and you have to be extraordinarily generous with the olive oil. You cannot be bashful on this one. So this is the same dough. It's nice and proofed. I'm going to dip. I'm going to turn it over and dip it again. And at this point, I'm going to use my fingers to stretch it out, stretching out this way, so that we get even dimples all the way down it. Doesn't that look pretty?
Yeah, it's even in the pasta class that I took, it was amazing to me how your fingers play such an important role in
And you smell the olive oil, so delicious.
Kneading, is that the word? Kneading the dough?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to get some rosemary, which is pretty classic to do. And I'm going to start chopping this up, just ever so.
This also has a delightful smell.
I love rosemary. It's one of my favorites. Just going to put that generously on that guy. Generally on this guy. Now, I'm going to take off my gloves here. As they're full of oil, I'm going to get some, I love Sicilian salt. I don't know if you made it all the way out to the other side of the island in Trapani. If you ever can, check it out because they have salt harvesting farms all over that. Oh, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
Is there a difference in
flavor?
Kosher salt, Sicilian salt.
There's tons of differences. I know it's sodium chloride. We all know this.
Right.
But the minerals in the salt, will give you different flavors and different expressions, and it's just, salt is one of those wonderful, wonderful things to know.
Yeah.
The thing about this particular thing is that it needs a little bit of water. So I'm going to grab a little bit of water and put it on top, and then we'll put it in the oven.
Okay.
A little bit of water on top.
Does that stop it from cooking too fast? Or
It impedes it from burning. It also creates a crunchier layer on top. And would you be so kind as to open that bottom oven for me? Yeah. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's go put that right inside. Go. It's an old chef technique with the foot. There you go. Okay. So far, so good?
So far, so great.
Excellent. I'm going to come over here and come over here so it absorbs a lot of that. We're going to let that cool a little bit before we dig into it.
And you cook it until in the oil till it's that golden brown.
Correct.
What are the differences between the northern Italian and the southern Italian food?
Oh, that's such a broad question. I don't even know where to start. This is huge. But the biggest thing is the influences.
Right.
Let's take Sicily, where I'm from, and look at how many cultures have actually come into Sicily. And every culture that's come into Sicily has left its print culinarily.
You talk about conquering.
Right.
the country,
So,
right.
Started with the Greek colonization.
Colonization.
Thank you. That's why you're a lawyer, because you can say big words. I'll stick to
Well,
it.
we understand colonies.
So then the Romans
Yeah.
came in. Then it was the Arabs,
The Arabs, Middle East, right?
Byzantine, Normans, Spaniards. All of these folks, the Moors,
Right.
the Carthaginians. I mean, it was insane the amount of folks that wanted Sicily. If you think about it, though, in that part of the world, it was literally the center of everything, right? You could shoot everywhere from there.
Africa, Europe, Middle East.
Right. And so now all those cultures gave influence to the flavors of Sicily. So the Arabs brought sugar, and they brought citrus, right? The Moors and the Spaniards brought chocolate, which is a New World thing, but they brought that into it. And so that's the expression of Sicily. It's got all these quote unquote Middle Eastern flavors and Southern Spanish flavors. You go to Northern Italy, and then you have leftover of the Romans, but you have a little bit more of the Northern European flavors. And also you look at the climate. Southern Italy is warmer by nature, so you're going to be able to grow more olive oils. And so you'll have olive oil. That'll be a much more prevalent thing than butter, which is much truer up north.
Right. So like a typical, when somebody walks into an Italian restaurant, that's all you know. It's an Italian restaurant. Typical tourist doesn't know Northern Italian, Southern Italian.
It's a difficult question, and here's why. I mean, first of all, there's 20 regions in Italy, and in every region there's provinces, and in every province there's their own traditions, their own ways of doing things, and their own flavors. So saying Italian is kind of like saying American in the sense of, well, what is it? Are we eating cuisine from New Orleans, or are we in Chicago? Are we in New York, or are we in San Francisco?
Right.
Obviously, something you have in New York City is not going to be what you have in San Francisco.
Right.
What you have in New Orleans is definitely not what you're going to have in Chicago, right? So the environment creates the cuisine, and the influences of other cultures create a cuisine. So and I know it's like that one size fits all. I want Italian food, and I expect this. Right. This is one thing that I love doing. And it's a hard nut to crack, because I want to provide for people an experience of Italian food that they may not be familiar with, and have them fall in love with Italy all over again as something completely new and different. Then I know I've done my job. My job is not to provide things that you can have. Every quote-unquote Italian restaurant in the country, you can have these dishes. That's not what I'm going to serve you. I'm going to serve you stuff that you can't find anywhere. That's my passion. That's my
And made
energy and joy.
And made with these hands.
And yes, absolutely. Handmade, because you can't find things mass-produced if they're not popular, right? So, but I do suspect that they will be popular eventually.
Okay. All right, let's take
Cool?
take this out. And
Ready?
I
Big taste?
I am ready.
I like that cheese and that sauce.
Yeah.
So simple and so delicious.
And so fresh.
And so fresh, right? Summer.
Yeah, and it tastes light. It doesn't taste heavy.
Right?
What's an ideal temperature for that, Gio?
So for
The
the
oven.
cooking of it,
Yes.
the cooking, I like high. I can eat at about 525. The internal temperature of this die wants to be 208 to 210. All right, so red's ready here. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Maybe crackle and going.
Crunchy. Yeah.
Now, typically, we would want this to hang out for a bit. Then I'm hungry. I'll let you start. Cheers.
Cheers. I love that the crunch, the crust. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share my passion. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Monzú, it's got to be one of the finest Italian restaurants anywhere in the world.
Thank you.
Right here at Flamingo, right by Jones.
That's it.
Right?
Thank you. Google it. It'll take you right over here.
Okay.
Monzú, M-O-N-Z-U. So the thing about Bergonzi, he was a madman. He was just absolutely fanatic, and he always spoke, hey, right here, hey, Giovanni Mauro, and I was from Sicily, northern Italian, and he was very, American. He had all these doubts, but by the end of it, he ended up loving me, and he taught me how to sing with the legato phrase. He taught me to say, Bella figlia dell'amore. Very legato and very just even. I mean, everything he did was right here. And that's opera singing, so you could project the voice way out.
You didn't want to do this on the show.
No, I didn't.
Too bad.
Sorry.